people have already spoken to you about the national education policy. And that is actually one of the focuses also, to get away from an education system that is so streamlined, into streams that they kind of form silos and you're not able to go across these streams. We don't want that to happen. And the NEP also, that is one of the big focuses. So the liberal arts education program is anyway based on that. So if you actually think about the very, ancient schools in India, like, Takshashila, etc., Nalanda, there, it was actually liberal arts education in the sense that students learned everything, they learned different domains. They learned mathematics, they learned sciences, they learned astrology, they learned, to write. They also learned to think critically, learned on debating, how to think, how to solve problems. So other than just specific domain knowledge, these were skills also that were actually, that was the basis, that was the main thing that had to be taught. And domain knowledge, was also taught, right? So if you look at liberal arts education, that is actually the main ethos and the purpose of a liberal arts education. So what they want is to create problem solvers, right? And they believe, the liberal arts education believes that to be a good problem solver, you have to learn how to ask the right questions first, right? So let me give you an example. So suppose you are leading a sales team, of a big company, and you notice that the sales over the last, the revenues and sales have been going down over the last several years, right? So there are two questions you can ask. The first one would be, how can I increase revenue? That would be, how can I improve sales? Could be one question you ask. The other question you could ask is, why are sales reducing? What has caused over the last years the sales to go down? What has caused the revenue to go down? So the second question is likely to be a better question because it would give you more insight into the problem, right? So to be a good problem solver, you need to be able to ask the correct questions. You need to be able to ask good questions. And to ask a good question, you need to be able to look at a problem from multiple perspectives, right? So generally a problem has, say, an economical perspective, it has a financial perspective, a social perspective, maybe it is a scientific perspective. So somebody who has studied a little bit of all fields, who has a grounding in all fields, is able to look at a problem from different perspectives. And because of that, they can ask better questions, because of which they can come up with better solutions, right? So that is basically the idea of a liberal arts education. So basically, we can start the next slide. So liberal arts education has actually taken off in a very big way in India over the last 10 years, and the number of liberal arts colleges has come, kind of really been expanding, and it's only going to go up, which is very, very good, right? So here, like Einstein says, basically, it's just not the learning of facts, but the training of the mind to think. So the liberal arts education in a good liberal arts college, right? Because there are colleges that say they're liberal arts, but we need to be a little bit careful because there are two things. One is that students are allowed to take a combination of subjects across different streams. That is one of the facets of a liberal arts education. But the other thing, like I said, is interdisciplinary learning, to be able to learn, to build a strong base across different domains. That's the actual ethos of a liberal arts education, right? So when we are recommending liberal arts education or colleges to students, we want to we want to differentiate between, is it just a college that is letting you choose across streams, or they actually have the entire ethos of a liberal arts education, like the entire philosophy? Are they teaching you critical thinking? Are they teaching you problem solving? Are they teaching you communication skills, etc., etc.? So we want to make sure that we know whichever colleges we are recommending for our students, that it is the one that actually follows the true philosophy of a liberal arts education, right? So we can look at the next slide. So let's look at, basically, now that I've generally explained the general philosophy, being that they want to create good problem solvers, Liberal arts, it's a multidisciplinary approach of education, which means that they believe, like I had mentioned, that if you have a broad base because you've studied something from the humanities, social sciences, natural sciences, and arts, then you have the ability to look at a problem from multiple perspectives, right? So this multidisciplinary, interdisciplinary approach to education is actually also one of the big skills that recruiters are looking for in the future, right? Because basically the skills that you learn in one side, we see this a lot, for example, if you learn mathematics, right? I mean, the tools that you learn in mathematics, you use in physics, you use in economics, you use in the sciences, you use in, when you're running experiments in statistics, in even other fields, right? So those are specific skills and tools that you have learned in mathematics that you're using in other fields. So this we have all done because we've all studied math at some point or the other. But there are certain skills, for example, if you are studying psychology, right? If you're studying, say, writing, you're studying history, specific skills that you learn there, a specific way of thinking, a specific way of looking at a problem, a specific way of analyzing information, right? Those skills, if you can use those skills into another field also, then the insights that you get into the field are different. So, for example, Steve Jobs has always said that the reason Apple has been so successful at what they do, and the reason they've been able to create the kind of products that they've created, is because they hire people who are historians, who are musicians, who are poets, who are writers, who are artists, who also are good computer scientists, right? And because they are all of these others, so other than computer science, I've also studied history or studied poetry or studied art or studied design. Therefore, the way they're able to look at a problem is different because they're also bringing in their skills from these other fields that they've also studied, right? That is the power of a liberal arts education. So basically, students study a little bit of everything. You study a little bit of humanities, social sciences, natural sciences, and arts, and you create a very broad base of knowledge and of knowledge, based on which you then specialize in whatever it is specifically that you want to study. Next slide, please. So why would we choose liberal arts education? And as a coach, as a career coach, why would we recommend this to our students, correct? Because students learn, they build a broad base across different domains, right? Therefore, they are able to, like I had said already, become better problem solvers and critical thinkers. They get innovative because they able to look at problems from different domains, different perspectives. They're able to apply skills across domains. And also, therefore, they're able to adapt change and diversity and complexity of thinking. And of course, they become intellectually curious because they have both width and depth of knowledge. And again, repeating again, the ability to look at things from multiple perspectives. Also, for example, a student who has an interest or a passion in 2 or 3 different fields. See, many times what happens is at the end of the 12, they're like, I'm really, really interested in biology, but I also really like English literature. Unfortunately, you can't choose both, right, in a conventional college. So in a liberal arts college, you are able to choose both, which is why you have a greater opportunity to explore your interests and passions further. Next slide, please. So what kind of skills? Now, see, basically one of the big questions that parents ask is that because you end up taking, different kind of subjects, you're not focusing on any one specific subject, at least till maybe the second or third year. Parents sometimes are not convinced about the fact about whether or not you're getting a proper, education in depth, right? So like, so what kind of skills do you learn? It all kind of sounds a bit, all over the place. You're learning a little bit of this, you're learning a little bit of that. What kind of skills do you actually learn, right? So like I said, other than domain knowledge, you learn to think critically and analytically, which is, as you know, one of the most important skills that we need. So it is not just that you learn critical analytical thinking as a byproduct of the subjects that you study. This is an actual course that you study, critical and analytical thinking, right? Problem solving. How do you look at a problem? How do you analyze a problem? How do you go through the steps of problem solving? These are all things that you actually learn. And again, creativity and innovation is a byproduct of being able to look at something from multiple perspectives. You have classes on research skills. You actually taught how to do good research. Communication skills, which is a really, really important skill, because you might be a person who is excellent at what you do, but if you're not able to communicate your understanding, then there is a big loss there, right? So basically, communication skills are also taught, and interdisciplinary and transfer skills, which comes basically from learning so many across different domains. So other than domain knowledge, other than the two subjects that you choose to study, or the electives that you take across domains, these are some of the very, very essential skills that you learn through a liberal arts education. And if you look at the World Economic Forum, look at the kind of skills that are required in, say, the 2030s, right? These actually are in the top 10 skills that you need, right? So in the liberal arts education, just the entire philosophy is already building towards that. See, it's just over the last 50 to 75 years in India, after independence especially, the focus became very much on science, because as a young country we wanted to make sure that scientifically, technologically, we were we could make a stand in the world, right? So the focus became a lot on that, right? And which was great. So that at that time the idea was that to have a secure future, you need to be studying science, right? Now things are changing again a little bit, and we realize that the importance of communication, research, thinking, critical thinking, analytical thinking, all of these are also very important and actually have to be taught, right? Not just that you just imbibe them through other things that you study. So again, the NEP has also said, for example, even in engineering colleges and technical universities, you have to do some kind of humanities courses. And even if you're doing a humanity, if you're doing a major in humanities, you still have to do a little bit of technical courses. So this way, generally education is going forward in that direction, right? And liberal arts curriculums are spearheading that kind of change. Next slide, please. So what are I mean, of course, this is again one of the big questions, right? This is great saying, okay, liberal education sounds fantastic. You're going to learn all of these skills, but what kind of jobs am I actually going to get after this? Because the fear is that if I am not focusing on one specific subject and getting in-depth knowledge in 4 years, am I as a student going to have enough knowledge for me to be able to get a job at the end of these 4 years, right? So think about the fact that at the end of the 4 years, the student is going to be able to be a good problem solver, going to be able to communicate very well, have to be able to think across domains, right? Is able to communicate very well, right? So these are essential skills that any recruiter is going to be looking for, right? So you could basically, a career choice after liberal arts is basically anything. Depends on what are the majors and minors that the student has decided, right? Could be economics, from public policy to consulting to psychology, academics. Many students actually who do this actually end up studying further because they're so interested in studying. Sorry, I saw comments saying that my voice is getting distorted. Is there a problem? I hope people can hear what I'm saying. Srivarsha, am I audible?
Yes, yes, ma'am.
Okay, I saw a comment there. Okay, fine. So basically across the board, okay. So basically it is like I said, because of the skills that you learn, right? You are, students from liberal arts colleges are very attractive to recruiters, right? And depending on what major you have done or what minor you've done, you are basically your career choices. Everything is open to you, right? Next, please. So how does the liberal arts curriculum actually work? So the students in the first year, irrespective of what it is that you want to study, right? Irrespective of, you say, I'm very sure that I want to study physics and computer science, irrespective, or I want to study history and economics, irrespective of what actual subjects you actually want to specialize in the first year, all students take foundation courses, right? So the foundation courses will the next slide is about foundation courses. We'll get into that. So all students take that, and from the second year on, they then decide what kind of a major and a minor they're going to take. So a major is basically the main focus of the course. So you take the maximum amount of credits in that. You take the maximum amount of hours studying that. This is also very similar if you think about it to overseas education, where I think Abhishek would have already spoken to you about majors and minors, right? So you're already familiar with that concept. But different from that is the first year, everybody has to do a foundation course, correct? And so they have to take courses from the sciences, from humanities, from arts, a little bit of technology, critical thinking, etc., research skills, communication skills, etc. Then they choose their major and their minor. You can choose one major, you can choose two majors, you can choose one major and a minor. Various combinations are possible. You can also do a pure major. You can also do interdisciplinary majors, like for example, you can do history and economics, or you can do history and political science. You know, those kind of things. Next slide, please. So the foundation courses, as I said, other than saying, you know, usually universities, if you look at the curriculum, if you look at liberal arts curriculums, they will have, say, group 1, group 2, group 3, group 4. So group 1 could be sciences, group 2 could be humanities, etc. And you have to take, I'm just giving you an example of how some universities might work. So you say you have to take 10 foundation courses, and you have to take 2 subjects from each of these groups. That way you've built a foundation across all streams. Other than that, these are some of the examples of kind of courses that you could take, right? Creative writing, principles of science, Indian civilization, for example, is a very popular course in Ashoka University. Visual arts. So as you can see, it forces you to think in different ways, because you know, if you are a student, for example, who at the end of 10th grade stop taking science, right? You again get back into thinking about that a little bit. If suppose you're a student who has never done any kind of writing, any kind of creative writing, you are, you know, taking this course helps you to think differently. So each of these courses, basically the foundation courses, help you think in a different way, because through school, through 10th grade, and then specialized already stream selection 11th and 12th grade, you are streamlined to think, you're thinking in a certain way, you know, you analyze problems in a certain way, you have a certain perspective. So these foundation courses kind of jolt you out of that, and force you to look at things in different ways, right? So based on this, many times what happens is students go with an idea of what they want to study. So for example, they're like, no, I'm going to go to college and I'm going to be studying history and economics. I know that for a fact, right? I don't like math at all, and this is what I'm going to study. Then they do the foundation courses, and just the way they think changes, right? And they are exposed to things that they have never studied before. And many students actually end up changing their mind, because they like, oh, this is very interesting. This is very interesting. I hadn't thought about that. So, which is why many students end up changing if they have not thought of a major, you know, when they actually started. That's fine. But even if they have thought of a major, they're allowed to change a major at the end of the first year after being exposed to these kind of different courses. The next slide, please. And then, of course, the majors. So like I said, you can have a single major like history, biology, mathematics, etc., that major, or you can also have interdisciplinary majors. These are some very popular majors. I mean, and these kind of combinations are, of course, offered even in other universities. This combination of majors is interdisciplinary majors is not specific only to liberal arts colleges, right? So history and international relationship, English and media studies, computer science, and entrepreneurial leadership or politics. Politics, philosophy, and economics is a very standard combination. For example, if you study in the UK, right? So these are whether you can choose an interdisciplinary major or just a major. For example, if you want to choose biology and English, that would not be at all a very common major minor combination, right? Again, you can choose 2 majors, you can choose a major and a minor, you can choose a major and 2 minors. Any combination is possible. Now, this is just a sample example of some possible majors. This very much depends on the university, right? So different colleges offer different majors. Some courses are offered only as a minor, depending on the faculty, of course, that they have, right? Next, please. Srivarsha, a lot of people saying that my voice is cracking. There's no problem, right?
Ma'am, we are not able to face that.
We are not able to face it. Okay, then I'll continue. The other great advantage of a good liberal arts college, so for example, if you go to Ashoka, you go to OP Jindal, you go to CREA, Flame, a lot of the faculty is actually, many of them have studied overseas, or you know, the PhDs overseas, or even if they've studied in India, they have, you know, they have collaboration with universities and professors outside of India, which means that they're working on research projects, or they are collaborating on writing papers with professors overseas, right? which means that as a student, if you are involved in any of these projects, you might get a chance to also collaborate on these projects and go overseas. You have students and professors coming from overseas to teach you. You get a chance to maybe spend a semester overseas. So this also gives a student an insight into how other people think, right? Different from, I mean, these are people who have grown up differently. They have different backgrounds. They've studied in different kind of environments, right? So how they think is also very, very important part of education. So international exposure, again, this is not unique to liberal arts colleges, but liberal arts colleges, definitely this is one of the added advantages also that they have. Next, please. So again, this is a question, of course, that we come back to because parents, I mean, that is a valid question because liberal arts colleges are expensive, right? So they are about 8 to 10 lakhs a year. So very valid question that parents are going to have is what kind of jobs is my child going to get if they go to a liberal arts college, right? These are some of the recruiters at some of the liberal arts colleges. This is randomly, I just literally picked up these names from websites of the colleges itself, right? So these are the recruiters that come regularly to recruit from the top liberal arts colleges. And as you can see, it's from pharma to finance to consulting to basically all kinds of jobs are possible. This is the top recruiters. Again, like I mentioned, if you have students coming out of liberal arts colleges who are good problem solvers, right, who are able to think critically, who are able to communicate very well, have interdisciplinary skills, have domain expertise in maybe one or two, or depending on the majors that they've done, one or two or three domains, right? These would be ideal candidates that recruiters are looking for, right? Next, please. So what is these are some of the, these are just again a small list of colleges that there are many increasing. Ahmedabad University, Thapar University, they are not on this list, but so this is just a few of the colleges that I mentioned. There are many more coming, and fortunately for our students, a lot of new ones also that are coming up. Right. So what is the application process for these colleges? This is slightly different from other universities, from other standard colleges that we apply to in India. Right. So this process is very similar to applying overseas, especially to the US. So academics are of course very important, but extracurricular activities are very important here, right? Personal essay, personal essay or statement of purpose, and letters of recommendation. So as you can see, this is very similar to a US application. This would be stage one, right? So all liberal arts colleges have several rounds of applications. I mean, so basically they have, for example, Ashoka, Flame, etc. They've already started their first cycle, right? So within each cycle, you have one or two rounds. So each of these cycles is independent in the sense that you apply for your first. So suppose you want to go through the December cycle one. You start your application round. If you get through the first stage, you go to the second stage. You finish the second stage, and then if they're going to accept you, all of this is done within one cycle that you finish, right? So liberal arts colleges have 3 or 4 cycles typically, right? So if you're talking to if you're going to be suggesting liberal arts colleges to your students, you can tell them that the college they have already started. They can already start, right? So the first stage was that, and based on that, if you get through that, then the second one could be either an aptitude test, or you have an essay, or you have an interview. Kriya University, for example, once the students are on campus, it gives them a case study, right? So students discuss the case study and then make a different presentation. So all kinds of things are possible in the way the second round is held. So the focus is on actually understanding how students think, right? What kind of motivations do they have? How are they thinking outside the box? What kind of engagement do they have with the community? What kind of understanding do they have of the world around us? These are the kind of things that the admissions officers are interested in understanding. Next slide, please. So as we know, we've been through the advantages of a liberal arts education, right? So interdisciplinary skills, broad knowledge base, flexibility in choosing courses, internship overseas opportunities, preparation for all of these. I mean, I'm not going to, I've spoken about this enough, right? And of course, they have great campuses and very good student life because, like I said, they're expensive, which means that they have great faculty, they have fantastic campuses, great dorms, which I've been told are almost like living in a five-star hotel, etc., etc. So these are the advantages. Other than just getting a great education, these are the other advantages. They have great clubs, lots of opportunities for the students to be trying different activities and pursuing different skills other than academic. So what would the disadvantages be? One of the biggest disadvantages, the next slide please, one of the biggest disadvantages is that they're very, very expensive, like I mentioned, right? They are between 8 to 10 lakhs a year. So unfortunately, not for everybody, though they do actually, liberal arts colleges give very good scholarships. But unfortunately, because of, I mean, they are substantially more expensive than our colleges. So when we recommend to our students, we have to, this is something that we do have to point out. Yet, even now, even though the awareness of about liberal arts colleges is increasing, right? There is still, I mean, that the awareness still needs to grow, and there is definitely a perceived um, understanding that there is lower earning potential, right? Because people feel that you do an engineering college, you know, there is directly you kind of get a very good salary, or you know, you do say you do a finance program, you get a very high salary. That is actually, like I said, not true, because looking at the kind of recruiters that come, right, depending on the major that you've chosen, depending on how well you've done, depending on the different kinds of activities that you've participated in, and if you've taken advantage of the opportunities that a good liberal arts education college allows you, you are a very, very attractive candidate for the recruiter. So learning the earning potential is definitely not low. As yet, there are still only a few choices in India, which is why, you know, they're very competitive, right, and they're expensive. But with the rise of liberal arts education colleges in India, hopefully, you know, that kind of problem is solved, and you know, students have access to really good colleges at a lesser expense. Hopefully, fingers crossed that that is basically what is going to be happening in the future, right? So basically, that was my a very, very quick, uh, you know, talk on liberal arts education, just to understand that this would be a great thing that you could suggest to students, right? So I think a question of the biggest challenge as a coach is to understand to whom would you recommend a liberal arts education, correct? Some students are very, very clear about what they want to study. So they want to study engineering, they want to study law, they want to study medicine. Of course, they cannot do that at liberal arts college, right? So understanding what the goals of the student are, understanding what kind of environment that they best learn in, because just going to a liberal arts college, right, is not going to be of advantage if a student is not able to take advantage of all the opportunities that are presented to them, right? And that they like the critical thinking aspect, the problem solving aspect, and they kind of, you know, take the opportunity to engage themselves with all the opportunities that a liberal arts college provides, right? So thank you very much. Hope that gave you an insight, just a quick, not insight, but a kind of a quick understanding of what liberal arts college is. Thank you so much.